This is the Final Word Cricket Podcast. Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon with you today. It's season 18, episode 14. We are well into our work in this northern summer, which is where most of our attention will lie this morning with the test summer around the corner. Plenty more as well. IPL at the end, plenty of politics, and, all the other sorts of things you'd expect us to talk about on the Final Word, including a county championship wrap at the very end. Good morning to you, Geoff, in Lisbon.
Good morning. Yes, it's the end of May. We're just about ready to go. We're getting into some test match action soon. We've got the Zimbabwe-England game. That'll be happening, coverage of that with a broadcast. I'll be involved. Daniel Norcross, Cameron Punsonby, Ben Jones. I think we'll all be stepping into the ring at some point or another. I don't know if it'll be a tag team situation. We'll find out. If Barrett were involved, it would be. But yes, the test portion of the summer is almost ready to go.
It is. Now, Geoff, you've got in our show notes, and I have no idea what it relates to. I'm just going to defer to you here because sometimes I just need to have faith that you've got something. You're bringing something here that is worthy of mention off the top. All you've got written here is Bobby Peel. Now, Bobby Peel. We know as a man who, as a spinner, it was an ideas man. He was a drinker. He's a man who famously once pissed on the pitch,
or didn't.
Or maybe didn't.
The story is that he did, but he probably didn't.
But a guy from the 19th century, big personality. Why are we starting the show with him today?
Just because we've been doing the work on the Storytime book, and there is a story about Bobby Peel in that book. And sometimes you understand the satisfaction of correcting wisdom when you find a mistake and you get to go back and do it. It's a little less full on, but there is still some satisfaction in correcting Cricinfo, and the ESPN Cricinfo profile for Bobby Peel has his first class career span as ending in 1897. It has his last listed match as being in 1896. So those two things are not the same. So initially, there's an error there, but then they're both also wrong because while I was looking to Bobby Peel, I found out he played a couple of miscellaneous first class games in 1899. So I've got two errors on the one page of Bobby Peel, which I got to send to Cricinfo and say, please sort out the affairs of your house because
that's
you
satisfying.
Cannot go around having this wrong information out in the world.
The last time I got a Cricinfo update was to a date of birth with Sawanji when they got it wrong by 2 years. And I tried to get one on Jeff Thompson's test bowling average, which I was unsuccessful with. We'll see how you fare.
They use the Wisdom rounding down method, but I'm definitely right in this case. So it'll remains to be seen whether anybody cares. I also enjoyed the headline on Cricinfo the other day that described the Chennai Super Kings as bottom scrapers. I thought there might have been a slight breakdown in translation there. They are at the bottom of the table, but I think calling them bottom scrapers is a bit harsh.
Yes, so we'll talk about the bottom scrapers. Actually, I don't think CSK comes up at all in our RPL chat this week. So sorry to you,
not worthy.
Dhoni gets name checked, but not. Spoiler, we've already recorded that before Geoff and I have started today.
Dhoni is CSK, so if you've mentioned Dhoni, you've mentioned CSK.
True enough. Hey, full court press on Edinburgh now.
Yes.
Now, I don't want to put too fine a point on this, but we need to rinse you. If you're listening to this, not because it's Geoff and me, not because it's various Final Word people, although 50 of them are running. I think we've got 12 of them doing the marathon as well. This is a massive commitment. To run a marathon, it's very different choosing to pad up for a half marathon or a 10K compared to a marathon. A marathon is like 9 months of your life. And that is, you have to keep training and topping up, and you can't just rock up a month or two before and make your mind up to do it because it uses different energy sources and that type of thing. And it's, it can be a little bit dangerous to do it off a lack of training as well. So there are many people who are making that commitment. The reason they are doing it is for the kids. It's for the kids. 28,000.
Thousands of them.
28,000 of them. This isn't like some small charity. 75th anniversary of the Tabs. Think about over the years what they've done for young people with disabilities and indeed other disadvantage in their lives to make cricket part of their world. And we're so proud to be Taverners and we're so proud to be working with them as we do. But it all falls down unless our community, and this is all of us, raise money in this way once a year. So we're trying to get to 30 grand. And the only way that'll happen is if we bind together. So the link's in the show notes, nickel and dime stuff, chip in, 20 quid or $50. It's on the Apple Pay thing. So you don't need to worry about being in a different country. If you're listening in Australia, and you see the 30 grand, you don't need to like change currency. Just do the Apple Pay or whatever it is on your phone. This is not rocket science.
It will work out. The computer will work that out for you.
Yes.
And if you're telling other people about it, you can be telling them that there are so many kids who are not able to have sport as part of their lives for whatever reason, whether it's physical disability, whether it's lack of access in their area, so much access to cricket was shut down. This is what these kind of programs are looking to overcome, to give kids that enjoyment of the socialization and being part of sport in a way where the world that they live in closes them out. It's not just UK stuff. I mean, it's the Taverners who sent shipping containers full of cricket kit over to Brazil and helped get cricket going in that country. They do a lot of work overseas. There are overseas Taverners organisations as well. They've done a remarkable amount of work over the years. And if you've already donated or if you can't donate at the moment, the thing you can do is tell other people about it. Really try to get involved with spreading the word on your social platforms, on your WhatsApp University, on your text messages to your gran, whatever it might be, to see, anybody who's got a fiver to throw in is going to help us do what we want to do, which is put another 20,000 through that fundraising platform in the last few days running up to the target.
Yeah, it's every little bit counts vibes. It's like the Good Friday appeal, but it's our own final word version of that. And instead of trying to raise 10 million or something, where our target is less lofty, but no less important in terms of the people that it reaches in the community. Hey, Jeff, if you're able to talk about Bobby Peel off the top of the show, I'm permitted to talk briefly about Eurovision.
Sure.
Only because I'm, as you know, quite
obsessed. If only they'd combined. If only Bobby had been around as a UK nominee. Yeah. He knew some songs. I am willing to tip that he knew some songs.
Look, the reason I raise it isn't for the contest itself. It's, I'm obsessed with voting systems, and like,
yes,
and there was a huge disconnect
and finals, between the final fives.
Yeah, that as well. That does come up in the IPL summary later. The McIntyre final five, as ever. The misunderstanding of what happened on Saturday night. I just wanted to set the record straight. So there's been a lot of reporting about Israel finishing second and having an enormous amount of the public vote, and people getting very cross about that. I'm not going to talk about that. Simply want to go through how it happened, right? So if you've got a ballot paper with 25 parties on it in that scenario, with very little name recognition beforehand, it's likely the vote will be sprayed all over the place. There'll be 2s and 3% all over, right? So that's what you get in the public vote of Eurovision, which is 50% of the weighting. Votes spread all over the place, right? So in order to get the 12 points for the song that is that's performed the best with the public vote, you only really need a fairly modest, healthy but modest minority.
You could win it with 4.1% is what you're saying.
You could theoretically. Someone put to me about somewhere between 12 and 15% is enough to actually get the 12 votes. So you got people saying it must be rorted. This can't be right. There is something untoward going on here. Not at all. What you need is a healthy minority of people. And my theory is that as the Israel Act has been booed loudly in both last year and this year's edition of the competition, and questioning whether they should be in it at all, including the Spanish government saying something about this yesterday. Remarkable, the tentacles of Eurovision sometimes. That it creates a natural sympathy towards the singer, who's not really nothing to do with them. What's going on in Gaza or in the Middle East more widely? It's just a singer doing their thing and doing it to the best of their ability. So, with that in mind, I can easily understand how the Israeli Act in both years has ended up way outperforming the jury vote, because there is a percentage of people in the community who either are like, oh, that's not very nice, her getting booed, she's done nothing wrong, and those who feel strongly enough about that to provide her with more votes than would be the average act, which wouldn't otherwise stand out. So that is so anyone that's been saying, oh, this is a rort, how could have they got a majority of the votes? It's not a majority. It's a very small but dedicated minority, which has led towards the skew in the public vote and the jury vote in the last 2 years. That is my TED talk. I rest my case.
It's like getting a seat in the Dutch Parliament or something. You can get one with 3% of the vote or whatever.
Yeah, well, when
it's a Senate allocation.
Well, the New South Wales Upper House is a great example of this. It's one constituency. So if you want to get in the Dutch Parliament, that's right. Yeah. You want to get in. I don't know how I'm comparing the New South Wales Parliament to the Dutch oven, but we've come this far. If you want to get in there, your quota, it's 40 in there, right? So the quota is fuck all. It's a couple of percent once you consider preferences and that.
2.5%.
So yeah, anyway, that's enough on that today. But I just saw so much stuff, and I know that our audience are fairly interested in both voting systems and Eurovision. I thought it was worth just stating that because there was a lot of mad reporting on Sunday and Monday.
There's definitely an overlap. There were no public votes involved in selecting South Africa's World Test Championship squad, which we didn't have last week. We expected to have last week, but we didn't. Bavuma is the captain, of course, because he's in the ad that they've been running, the very dramatic ad where they've got like various august personalities of the game reading a script to the camera going, in the version of that World Cup one, it takes one day, that kind of thing. But for Test cricket, which wasn't bad. Clearly they give them all the script. They make them all read the whole script, and then they take snippets of whoever delivered that line best and use, so you go from Mel Jones here to Matthew Hayden there to Nasser Hussain there. It stood out to me how little of Steve Smith's voice they used. They used Steve Smith's head a fair bit, but I'm guessing that he maybe didn't nail the lines with the sort of Laurence Olivier flourish that some of the others did. But Bavuma didn't have a lot of speaking time either, but he was there. So he's skippering. Rabada's there after his little bags ban, and a battery of fast bowlers. Lungi Ngiti's back, hasn't played tests for ages, but is one of those options that they can pick from.
Yeah, Unrik Nortje not being there is frustrating. It's that broken toe. They just haven't quite gotten him to the line. He's not contracted, so it's one of those quirky ones where he's been out in the media reinforcing in the last few days that he is actually available for selection. But there's that disconnect,
and he would have been
right?
picked, surely.
Of course. Yeah. But there's that thing about, like, if you're not nationally contracted and you're not actually playing Test cricket, how do you rationalise it and so on? But they did say that he would have, if not for the... yes, and Steve Smith, he did an interesting social media thing the other day. There'll be a few social media posts reflected upon today. He did a collab with that posh bloke. I can't remember what it's called anymore. He goes into pubs and spends 60 seconds draining a schooner and talking about the pub. And they did Pat Cummins' Australian themed. I didn't know he had an Australian themed pub in New York, but there you go. Pat Cummins has an Australian pub in New York. How badly do you need to be going to get to the other side of the world and go, I'm going to seek out an Australian pub? But anyway, if that's your thing, do it. But yes, Smith was collabing with this guy with like hundreds of thousands of followers to talk about Pat Cummins' pub, and he wasn't sculling the schooner with the social media posho. But
no.
Anyway, that's a thing that happened this week.
Okay. Was he any good? Was he good talent? He's experienced. He's generally pretty straight down the line. I'll
kind of what you said before. He didn't have many lines, but he was quite excited to be there. Put it that way, because he kind of lives in New York now, doesn't he, Smith? So it makes sense they would use him as the talent, I suppose. But yeah, 6 fast bowlers for South Africa, where and clearly that's their route one to victory, right? The last time they played a Test match at Lords was in 2022 against England, and they rolled them for lower than 200 on both occasions. And that was primarily Rabada, who was player of the match that week. So if they get hot with a group of quicks, you'd expect the pitch that time of year will have live grass on it. 11th of June. I mean, it's pretty dry here though. There isn't much going on in terms of the traditional English conditions right now, but still you'd be fairly certain that the pitch, much as it was in 2023 for the World Test Championship final, will have juice in it. And South Africa will have a chance to extract that at some stage. But yeah, heaps of quicks. Aidan Markram and Ryan Rickleton will open the batting. That's been stated already. Tristan Stubbs is there, which is great. Made that 100 against Pakistan. Does he bat 3? Do they use him as a more versatile, hard-hitting number 6?
They said he was 3 long-term. Conrad Shukri said last time he's 3 for the next 2 years, I think he said.
I think that's right, taken as a whole, but if it is a pitch that's going to have a bit in it, would you rather card him at 6 and have a degree of flexibility there? Hard-hitting number 6 who can just destroy a tired attack if they can get that far. David Beddingham's injured at the moment, but he's returning from that ailment, and they expect him to play. Kyle Verreynne has had a great prep with Notts in the county championship, and he's in top form, having enjoyed a wonderful 2024. So, there's the squad of 15. Now, the real story here, though, Jeff, was that when it was announced, the 15, it was combined with an announcement that they would all leave the IPL on the 25th of May, so 5 days from when we're recording this episode. 2 days before the end of the regular season and about a week and a half before the final. I think the final was the 3rd of June.
And it was a few days after Shukri Conrad, the coach, saying the national team is not a franchise.
Exactly.
It's not a, paraphrasing, it's not a Mickey Mouse tournament. This is the real shit. If you want to be here, you commit. You're going to be here for the warm-ups, and that lasted 24 hours. And then they went, actually, stay at the IPL. If you want to stay at the IPL, that's fine. Or if the IPL would like you to stay at the IPL, that's also fine.
Well, there's this reference in the news reporting out of India, which I was tapping into, saying there were discussions between the BCCI, the IPL franchises, and Cricket South Africa. I'm sure they were very one-way discussions. How don't you dare pull your players out, or we will fucking have it over you forever. So the final being the 3rd of June, that's when their Arundel practice match begins against Zimbabwe. So they won't have access to that. Remembering that it's not as though all 8 players at the IPL from South Africa will still be there then. So this is Rabada, Stubbs, Ngidi, Markram, Rickleton, Bosch, Jansen, Mulder. Out of that lot, I had a quick look before, those who could theoretically play finals, Rickleton, Bosch, Ngidi, Stubbs, Jansen, and Rabada's team are top of the table. So he will definitely be in the postseason. So, we speculated last week about this in relation to Australia and England. Well, we probably missed the obvious one here, that South Africa are so compromised by this that, look, they're so conditioned to moving in and out of tournaments. I'm not saying it'll be the difference or anything like that, but it's clear that there was a want from Cricket South Africa to have these guys, as you point out, Jeff, being fully focused and fixated on their one task at Lords. Well, now they'll be rushing in later than they wanted, and that's, it's more of the boiling frog stuff, isn't it? If this were a normal world and a normal sport administrated, governed in a normal way, there'd be uproar about this, but it's none of those things. And we just have to accept that that's the way the world works.
Well, it's more on the football model of having national confederations arguing to try to get their players released from clubs, but the clubs have the power. And it depends who they're playing for. If any South Africans played for Rajasthan Royals, which they don't, I don't think they're done by May 20th. Like, they're not going to make finals as far as I can see, and their last game's the 20th of May, so their players could be out of there that night. The group stage all up ends on May 27th, but there's only one game a day, so there might be a few other players who can get away early and get to England roughly by that May 25 date, which is when they wanted them anyway. So it'll just be who's made finals, and if you get knocked out in the first round of finals, then happy days, get on the plane that night. So it probably only ends up affecting, maybe 4 players max.
Well, selfishly,
to the full extent.
Selfishly, I'm hoping it's exactly 4. The reason being is that they go to Arundel, out of the 15, they go to Arundel for this game against Zimbabwe. I was there down at Arundel playing last week.
And it's 11.
I want this to have first-class status. Yes. I don't want this to be a Mickey Mouse, 15 guys rotating through.
No.
I spoke to the boss of Wormsley about this, actually. They weren't quite sure about how this would run. They've got the facilities to... Well, they've hosted first-class cricket. Of course, they have. The Aussies played a game there in 2019, didn't they? And there are many more examples of that.
Played a game there for 90 years.
Yeah, well, quite. But I mean, in recent times, there's certain benchmarks that grounds need to meet to be a first-class venue. But yeah, it'd be nice if that game had a little bit more riding on it than just a practice match. And yeah, that's between the 3rd and the 6th of June. So it'll be a race against time for some of the
race around
the players
the world
coming out from India. The NOC thing, by the way, sorry, you go on, Jeff.
Well, just it was interesting. I was going to raise the NOCs from England, because they have pulled rank and said, we've got a white ball series, a meaningless bilateral white ball series against West Indies. And they're like, no, we need our players back. They were supposed to be done by the 25th. You said you were finished with them. You said you'd be done. You told us you would be done by the 25th of May, and so we need them home. So they're going back. Joss Butler, Jofra Archer, Jacob Bethel, Will Jacks, Jamie Overton. Livingston has been dropped, so presumably he can stay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So it's a quirky one, right? So I think we all anticipated England to alter their white ball squad, allow the IPL to do as the IPL wished, and then keep, like, Butler's the main one, and Jonesy talks about this later. He's the standard bearer at Gujarat. He's obviously a vastly experienced player in the IPL, and he's no longer the England captain.
He's been making runs this season.
He's no longer the England captain. So the thinking there is that, but to their credit, the ECB have said, no, our NOC was to the end of the allotted time. We're not extending it by a week. You're not having our players. So that applies to Butler, Archer, Bethel, Jacks, and Jamie Overton, I think, are the 5, as best I can tell. But it does create this wrinkle or this quirk where a nationally contracted player in Johnny Bairstow, who was not at the IPL, is now rumoured, not rumoured, Matt Roll has written the yarn, that he will go to Mumbai as a replacement player next week. Yeah.
So I love that for him. I love that Johnny's got something to do, keep him busy.
Played well this week.
Does that mean, is he missing championship games to do that?
Yeah, he misses one championship game this week to enable. He batted very nicely at the Oval for 89 and 77. So he's in good nick. But I love the idea of, hang on a minute. For some it's a loss, for some it's an opportunity. And for Johnny, I don't know how much you make for a week at the Mumbai Indians.
Isn't he on a 2-year deal as well?
Yeah.
With England? So that was one of those incredible ones. They signed him to a 2-year deal, punted him like 3 months later, and basically said, you'll never play for England again, or 4 months, whatever it was after the Champions Trophy. And now he's got his 2-year deal, and he can go and play the IPL instead of the county.
Well, who's to know? It's a long time. I think this is a point that Yas Rana was making on comms with us this week. That it's a lot of cricket England have got, and who's to know whether there might be another twist in the Bairstow story, and how the IPL, which he has at times dominated, might help vault him back into consideration for those England white or indeed red ball teams in the future. It's improbable. I'm not saying that Bairstow's on the comeback trail, but more that Livingston, who has been dropped, and as recently as 4 months ago was captaining England in the Caribbean, 4 or 5 months ago over the winter, and he'll be able to stay. So and the other one who's been picked for England for the Windies series.
You're hearing it more and more. Curtis Patterson versus Johnny Bairstow in the 2027 Ashes. That's going to be the head-to-head.
Well, they're up against each other this weekend. More about that in our county wrap. But Liam Dawson has been picked as well, which I'm obviously thrilled to see this. I think anyone that's followed the domestic game in England has been hoping he'd get one more crack, and he's getting it in the white ball team the week after next.
Mm-hmm. Should be in the test side. Should be in the test side. Make it happen.
Couldn't rule it out.
He's not in the squad, not in the Zim squad.
No, he's not. But I mean, you couldn't rule out him
over the summer.
He's the one who I think you might just see pop up in the Ashes squad because of experience, plays a number of roles, etc., etc. Hey, I don't really care about prize money. It's not really a thing that I get too interested in. But they've doubled it for the World Test Championship final to $3.6 million US.
Right.
The losing finalist gets 2.1, and I love the fact that having finished third, India collects 1.5 mil in prize money for not actually making the final, and it cascades through to ninth. That Pakistan get nearly $500,000. So everyone gets a lick of the ice cream.
But, it's not bad. Fourth, New Zealand get 1.2 for finishing fourth. It's kind of get knocked out in the first round of the Australian Open areas for Pakistan. It's a decent slab, $500,000 US, but I suppose it doesn't go that far when you've got you're taking squads of 15 players and 10 support staff around the world. You probably spend that in about 2 days trying to play Test cricket, which is an expensive business. But entertaining. Does it all just go to the players? I would assume that the prize money, if you're Cricket Australia and you get $3 million US for winning a thing,
there's a percentage.
It doesn't affect the bottom line, does it?
Yes, I think there's a percentage that goes back to the organisation, but overwhelmingly the players share in that, including other squad members, which is that egalitarian way it all gets divvied up. So that's the prize money.
Richard Hadley's car,
that's right. Just on selection stuff, this will come up later in county wrap stuff, but it just was worth noting what's happened this weekend in the championship with the 3 guys who are in the mix. So Cam Green's made a really important contribution for a win down at Bristol. He made 128 in the first innings and then got them over the line with 67 not out in a tight chase. So Green, having had, I think, 2 or 3 fallow weeks, having started with 100, sort of caps his time at Bristol with another one and a match-winning performance.
He needed one more score, didn't he, just to sort of make people confident, I suppose. He probably would have got picked anyway, but there would have been more upset about it, whereas now you can't really complain.
Yeah, and he did that batting at 5, not batting at 3, but it feels like 3 is where the vacancy may well be. In saying that, Marnus double fail. So Glamorgan won handily, but Marnus was nicked off by Conway in the first innings, who did one of his rather extensive celebrations. He was pretending he was an umpire, pointing the finger at Marnus and all that carry on. And he missed out in the second dig as well. So 0 and 4 for Labuschagne. So he was batting number 3, not opening against Northants. I'm not sure why he wasn't opening, if that's the position they've earmarked for him in a couple of weeks' time. He'll get one more chance next week before the run of red ball cricket ends. But I wonder whether privately they've made their mind up that all three of them, Webster as well. Webster got 6 wickets and made 40 odd for Warwickshire. He's in okay, Nick. So have they already made their mind up? Is this a locked 11, or is there room in the absence of Labuschagne runs for Inglis and or Constas to genuinely vault into the side? I've got no read on that. I'm just curious whether they've rocked up here fairly certain with what they actually want and they're not going to take too much consideration of this, or whether Green making a significant contribution to a win, having been here for a month, Webster being here for a few games, and Labuschagne now maybe needing runs. I'm no strong view, but it's a point of interest to me.
Live updates, just on a distraction. I've got the tab open on the fundraising page. New donation just in. Chris Pavlo, 50 quid. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep them coming. Let's pretend that we're doing it live. We'll do it. We'll do it. Good Friday.
What's that old? Style. Yeah, it's the old thing. Yeah, I'll give you $20 and I'll double if it's read out on TV. Well, I'm happy to read them all out on TV, as it were, or on the podcast on YouTube. I'll read them out one after another, like it's a
like your Gillan McLaughlin.
Yeah, that's it. I was thinking about some more less pleasant ways of reading things. But yeah, that's it. I'm very happy to do a special YouTube episode where we read out every donation. If it takes that, I will do it to get us to 30 grand. So what do you think, Jeff? Do you think that, like, do you in your gut, do you think the Australian team is the Australian team that we all expect, with Labuschagne opening, Green at 3, Smith at 4, Head at 5, Webster at 6, and then the usual suspects? Or do you think that, like,
I think so. I think the way Constas, I think the way that Bailey particularly sets things up, the Bailey McDonald axis, is that they know what they want and they don't really care. Cam Green could have played those games and made 400s, or he could have made 8 ducks and they'd probably still just pick him. They'd probably go, this is what we've decided to do. Short runs of matches don't tell you a lot necessarily. People always make that confusion between results versus form. Someone's out of form if they haven't made a score in 2 hits. It is the way that a lot of the cricketing public perceives it, when that's just probability. You can't assess form unless something is genuinely wrong with the way that somebody's approaching the game in a technique sense or a mindset sense. So I think they like to decide on things and not be too rattles, not be influenced too much by short-term results, I think.
And what I should have mentioned before about NOCs, this is info from Dan Brettig. So Josh Hazlewood's in Brisbane this week training. Then he'll do the IPL finals because RCB are in there. Then he'll go to London. Pat Cummins only has 2 more games to play for Sunrisers Hyderabad. Then they're out of the comp, so his prep won't be affected by the IPL. Stark's staying home. And Elisa Healy has done some media on her podcast around this as well, describing what happened that night in Dharamshala with the 2 of them and the drama of that when the lights went out. So Stark's decided to stay put and not return to India. Head's going back over for the last Sunrisers game as well. So he'll be there with Cummins and over to the UK. And Inglis, not clear, but Inglis is with Punjab Kings and playing. I'm not sure if he's going back to India or otherwise, but he's at least playing some cricket, whereas Constas has not been playing cricket since the end of the Shield season. So the extent to which that feeds into this as well. Hard to know for sure, but decisions ahead of the World Test Championship final on the 11th of June. Jeff, before we go to our first break, Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm, been in the business, in the caper, since 1919, when their country said, son, it's time to stop rambling because there's work to be done. Didn't literally say that. That was in 1915 and a whole different thing. I don't want to compare the legal practice to going to Gallipoli. That would be crude and wrong.
That would be difficult to sustain that comparison.
Although in saying that, I would imagine the years of World War I and the effect of that must have played a role in influencing the type of law firm that Maurice Blackburn would ultimately start the year after that conflict concluded. So it isn't completely absent a link.
Well, people came back from war and they needed to work. They needed jobs and they needed workplace protections. They needed to not be taken advantage of in an environment that might have been positioned to do that. And that's what Maury Bees is all about. Working people, looking after them, little guy versus big guy, trying to take on the right cases to look after people. Not all lawyers do that, it is safe to say, but these ones do.
Yeah, and the majority of their work is on a no-win, no-fee basis, and that reflects their values there as well. So, and when it comes to super insurance, that's certainly the side of the business where you're getting, well, I'd say the firm rather, where you're getting experts on a complicated what can be a complicated area of the law. So, they are there to make sure that you get everything you are entitled to in the event that you're unable to work due to injury or illness, in keeping with your superannuation insurance policy. We've been sent through a bunch of really interesting sort of case studies from Maurice Blackburn as well, where they've been able to directly help people. So we'll start weaving those stories through the middle of the UK summer, which we are nearly at. So Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm. We are proud, very proud to be in association with them on The Final Word. Back in a moment.